Hello and welcome to this special coverage on ET Now, where we are bringing you insights on Nasscom and Zinnov's report on the state of the Indian startup ecosystem and the tech startup ecosystem in particular. This is a data that they release every year, and to tell us more, we have Debjani Ghosh, the president of Nasscom, as well as Pari Natarajan, who's the CEO of Zinnov. Thank you very much for joining us. Debjani, I remember sometime in May 2020, at the height of the COVID crisis, Nasscom put out a very grim prognosis for the Indian startup ecosystem, where you said 90% of startups surveyed showed a revenue decline, 30-40% of them are in the process of shutting down permanently or temporarily. But when I look at the report today on the year that was, there certainly seems to have been a turnaround, because there have been over 1,600 plus new startups added. We've seen a record 12 unicorns added in 1 year and a 90% improvement in funding in the second half compared to the first half. So what really changed the tide? Is this sustainable going into 2021 as well?
Thanks, Chandra. The report or the survey we had done in around May, I think, was more focused on the early startups, and we were trying to understand how are they doing, and they were not in a good place. But I have to say that the tech startups have done a tremendous job of pivoting their businesses and just adapting to the new norms and the challenges. And frankly, I think they have used this opportunity to strengthen the foundation even more. So when you ask about, is this sustainable? I honestly believe what has happened in 2020 and the changes that the tech startup ecosystem has gone through, it's actually strengthened the foundation for a stronger continued growth. So it's to me, I think it's increased sustainability significantly.
Right. Pari, coming to you, one interesting trend that we've seen is, more and more Indian startups and unicorns are coming up with a global market and a global revenue model. And this is perhaps something that's only going to get accelerated because of this whole trend of remote work, which could work to India's advantage. So are we going to see more such business models coming up in areas such as EdTech, the SaaS space in particular, where you have India-based companies with a global revenue model, global market?
Absolutely, Chandra. It's very clear that there was a differentiation for the US startup. They can actually go physically and sell to an enterprise. But today, everybody is working from home, in the US more so. So the startups today can sell effectively from India. Take an example of Zenoti, which has to sell to SaaS in the US, right? And their revenue actually has increased over the last few months because the SaaS have a lot of time. And now, because not many people are using it, they can drive the change management within the organization. So even a company which is selling into SaaS, which is one of the deeply impacted sector in the US, are effectively able to do it from Hyderabad in India without traveling. That's a great example. The role model set by these companies and Freshdesk and others will create more such SaaS startups from India. And more, even in the US, we believe companies will move into a remote sales model and start setting up the remote sales presence from India, like how they set up their engineering presence in India. So you almost will start to see the reverse of that as well going forward.
And I think, Pari, to add to that, I think we saw a pretty interesting shift in what I call the founder's playbook. As we started talking more and more to founders, I think all of them were thinking about a few things which they didn't talk about before. One was the whole remote work, and how do they as a startup leverage remote work? Whereas I remember in the beginning when the lockdowns happened, pretty much all of them had thrown up their hands and said, we will not survive in a remote work environment. So it was very interesting to see how not only how much did they embrace remote work, but how they turned it into a strength and an advantage. And I think the second thing that I found changing in the founders playbook is pretty much all startups now, B2B, B2C, are all thinking build local, but go global. This is, and it's no more, let me establish a base here and then try and find markets outside India. But it's pretty much becoming from day one, how do I expand? Which to me, those were two very interesting changes that we saw in the founder mindset.
Right. And Debjani, in terms of the measures that can be put in place, you spoke about some proactive measures that can accelerate the momentum. What are the one or two things that can be done immediately to kind of help startups, nurture them, keep the momentum going?
I think two things, Chandra, if we can get those two things right, we are on a very good track. One is continued focus on ease of doing business for startups. We've taken steps. I think made incremental progress, but we need something a little bit more disruptive now, especially with, just let's take away all the obstacles that they face and really give them a, like we had done for the ID services industry. Let's make it completely easy for them to work and to exit businesses if they need to for the next 5 years, right? It will help significantly in strengthening the base even further. I think ease of business continues to be a bit of a thorn by our side in India. And I think the second one I would say is there is a need to think through why India is lacking in domestic capital, especially when it comes to deep tech, and what can be done. We're seeing improvement, so it's not that it's not improving. It is improving, but if we can address these two things to jump from incremental improvements to a little bit more of exponential improvements, I think it will significantly help the startup ecosystem.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I'm just saying that adding on to that, the digital infrastructure built in India, we'll have to continue to accelerate what we have done with UPI, what we have done with GST. Each of this has made regulation much easier, creating
in terms of the roads, the rails.
Exactly. So the open public goods India has been building, the health stack which is being created here, I think that's a significant advantage for India compared to any other country. And we need to continue on that path and build more and more of that public goods.
Right. Right. Just a quick follow-up, Pari. Your report says the path to $1 trillion digital economy. So where are we now? When are we going to see this $1 trillion target come about? And you've also given an ambitious number for the number of unicorns that are likely to be generated in 2021. We saw a record 12 getting added in 2020. So are we going to cross, the overall 50 mark in 2021? And again, will we see SaaS B2B take a larger share of it compared to the consumer internet businesses?
Absolutely. We're sure that we will cross the 50 number because the Soonicorns numbers have increased. And also the B2B companies don't need the same amount of funding to become a unicorn. So that's another reason you'll get to see a lot more unicorns over the next year. Like I said, the digital $1 trillion economy, we will do it faster if you're able to continue to build on the digital infrastructure, what we are building in India. And it's creating fundamentally a completely new set of innovations from startups. And if we continue on that path, we will see that happen sooner than later.
Right. Debjani, will we also see more M&A action, investments happening from the large IT companies, from the mid-sized IT companies, because they have a lot of cash on their books. They also want a larger slice of this new economy. I mean, companies like Wipro have a dedicated venture fund. But is this another trend that we're going to see? Corporate India, particularly IT services companies, looking at a larger pie of tech startups and SaaS startups?
Absolutely, Chandra, and I'm glad you asked that question because I had missed it when I was talking about the trends. That's the other trend that we have seen, which is partnerships have spent different models, whether it is M&As or whatever, but partnerships overall have become extremely important for startups. And startups are very actively looking at partnerships, both domestic and global partnerships, to expand, to build on their skills, their capabilities, and the markets. And the coming together of large companies and startups, both Indian ID companies, the MNCs, the tech MNCs, and also the analog companies. I mean, recently we've been working with a lot of manufacturing companies to get them to work with startups to um, up their innovation charter, and it has been going tremendously well. So I think you will see a lot more, not just IT companies, but you will see large manufacturing companies and retail houses and banks, finance companies, etc. Definitely expanding their or increasing their scope or their the partnerships with startups, so be it acquiring a startup or be it getting into a co-creation agreement.
Right. Final question to you, Pari. If you have to pick out a segment for 2021, what would it be? 2020 was largely your ed tech, fintech, agri tech. Will 2021 perhaps be the year of deep tech, or is there another segment that you would like to call out, and just in terms of a prediction?
Yeah, even within deep tech, we would say developer focus deep tech companies focused on digital work, those could be a segment to watch for. You have seen company like Postman almost come out of nowhere and becoming a unicorn. You would see more such companies coming in. People are all working from home anywhere in the world, same kind of challenges. And our startups could move much faster and with a VC support, be able to build great companies in a very short time. So that's digital workplace, remote work would be one part of the deep tech to watch out for.
Actually, I'll just add to that, Chandra. I honestly don't think deep tech is a
Right.
vertical.
On that.
Deep tech is going to be a horizontal. It's going to cut across, and you're going to see more and more deep tech being adopted. But in terms of segments, I think we'll see a lot of action in logistics because that's a segment that is growing in importance. And as Pari said, I think remote working is going to throw up whole new opportunities. And then this whole contactless economy, because like it or not, we're still going to have very little contact in 2021. I think that's going to throw up tremendous opportunities for startups to innovate.
Right. On that note, thank you both very much for joining us on ET Now to take us through all the key trends that we will expect in 2021 in the Indian tech startup ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandra.
Thank you.